My name is Justin Castelli, and my firm is RLS Wealth, and my unexpected hobby is spoken word poetry.
Welcome to Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors, the podcast where we interview fellow financial advisors about their pursuits and pastimes beyond their professional persona, some of which may be surprising to their colleagues and clients. We're interested in what makes them tick and how their unexpected hobbies might or might not relate to their everyday lives. Here's our discussion with this week's guest. Welcome to the Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors podcast. I'm Brian Wright with Fiduciary CFO, alongside my co-host and fellow financial advisor, Joshua Walker.
I'm excited to be here.
As you should be, because joining us today, definitely a first-time hobby. I mean, when you have a handful of episodes, everyone's a first-time hobby.
They're all first-time hobbies thus far.
But I've met a lot of people with a lot of hobbies over the years, and I've never met anyone with this hobby. So I'm very interested to talk to Justin Castelli about his unexpected hobby, spoken word poetry. Welcome, Justin, and tell us, how in the world did you get into this hobby?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here. And I have to be honest, this is a new hobby. So how did I get to this hobby? I decided last fall that I was tired of waiting around to have the opportunity to be a paid speaker. So I decided I'm going to create my own speaking series. So I came up with this concept of the Keep Pursuing series. It was 5 talks. I did it over a series of 7 weeks because there was holidays in there. But what I did was each talk was an independent talk. But when you combine them together, it kind of told this process of how do you find and live your authentic life. And that's what I really am focused on and trying to help people do, is figure out who they are, what do they want to do in life, and how can they bring that life to fruition. So the talks all kind of told that story. And I promise this is going to tell you how I got to spoken word poetry, because this is a series of talks I'm talking about. Afterwards, I got this idea of, what if I took each of these talks and then turned them into spoken word poems? So take this 40-minute talk and condense it down. And I just started doing that. So I don't know if my poems are any good. I have no history of doing it, but I just decided I wanted to try this. And I think the reason I'm interested in doing it is I love hip hop. Anybody who has followed me for any amount of time knows that I love hip hop. And this is my version of what might be hip hop for me. My spoken word poems, they don't rhyme. The reason I like the spoken word poem format is, from what I've seen, is there are some that very talented poets that they have the rhyming in there, and you can tell it's a poem. But what I've seen is it's kind of like almost like free structure to write short little sentences, and that when you say them all together, it tells the whole story. So it gives me the freedom to kind of try to write like a hip hop artist, but I don't have the pressure of having to rhyme and have the cadence and those types of things yet. I hope over time, as I get better, I can begin to do that. And I kind of want to go back to the first 6 poems that I did for the series and see if I can't rewrite them and make them a little bit more like a rap, and then see what goes from there.
Is it completely free form? Or I know they're not rhyming, but is there even like some sort of cadence that you have, or rhythm to it, kind of like a haiku or anything, or
Nope.
not?
No,
Total free form.
Yeah, I just decided I'm going to do it my way. Like, again, and maybe I shouldn't call them spoken word poems, but that's kind of the best thing I could come up with to describe what they are. And I kind of try to make sure that each line doesn't get too long. But also I want to make sure that when I break to the next line, it is kind of a complete mini thought. I don't want to just break to make the sentence shorter or the line shorter. I want it to be kind of like, okay, it makes sense that this is the next line. So that's kind of where I'm at now. But it's been kind of fun because I am experimenting in public with this new way to express myself. Like, we could probably have said that my favorite hobby is just creative expression, because I've gone through different evolutions of this. I write, I have the podcast, I do videos, I did little shorts that were kind of like mini documentaries, and like this is the current form. But I want to give more time to the spoken word and get better at it, because I have a bigger, I'll share it with your audience. I haven't shared it with very many people, but my ultimate goal with the spoken word poem is to keep on building upon it and improving it, but ultimately turn it into an album.
Oh, cool.
So what I want to do is continue to evolve these first 6. And I've written other spoken word poems, but these first 6, because it's from the series and it tells a story, I want them to evolve and then either find somebody who is a producer that can make the style of beats that I like, or learn how to make my own beats and then put them over the beats. And what I don't want to do is just speak the poem over the music. I want to creatively edit the audio, like me speaking over the music, so it becomes more of like a song. I don't want to just be sports. I have it in my mind. There's a DJ. His name's Nick Beats. I think I'll look it up. I just blanked on it. But anyways, he did an album called Louie, and I had never heard of the album before. I just heard his interview with Rick Rubin from a while back, like a year ago. And so I listened to Louie, and what I have in my mind is what that album is like. So if you're interested in kind of what I have in my mind, go look up that album Louie, and that kind of is the direction that I want to go.
How much material would you need in order to make you think, okay, now this is an album's worth of material? How long are these poems?
Some of them are kind of lengthy, but I just need these 6 songs because I want it to be more, okay, maybe it's more like an LP. So, artists will put out like an LP of like 4 or 5 tracks before they do the big album. But so these 6 will be it. It will be the Keep Pursuing album because the series was called the Keep Pursuing series. So I have the material that I need. Probably need to fine tune a little bit, and then I need to get the music to it. So I have no idea how long it will take to get the actual music component of it. But I'm gonna press it as a vinyl record. I even kind of want to put it on cassettes. I don't care if I make any money on this. Like, I just want to do this because it's something that I'm interested in, and I think it'd be really, really cool. And it is, my version of being a hip hop artist.
That's exactly that resonates with me. That's the reason I own a Billy Madison pinball machine. It makes no sense to most people, but it's just what I wanted to do, and I needed to kind of push myself to see if I could do it. And you get on the back end of it, and you're so happy you did, and it was really, really cool. So you mentioned doing this in public. Like, is this the digital public? Like, I know. I mean, I've seen some of your stuff on LinkedIn and some of the shorts that you've done, but are you doing this in public? Like, are there open mic nights you can jump on and do this?
Eventually, I would like to. So right now, the public is me doing it in front of the camera and then putting it out on social media. And Kenny Beats is the DJ. I can't believe I lost his name. I'm so embarrassed. Hopefully he doesn't see this.
I'll splice it in. And
you can leave it. No, keep it authentic. Okay. I messed it up. Kenny Beats is the artist. So what I've done to this point is I'll come into the studio and I will have the camera in front of me and I'll recite the poem. And I don't have it memorized. So I have this notebook that I love. It says Dope Rhymes on it. I forget where I found it. So I type out my poems, I put them on my blog, I share them, and then I actually write them out in my notebook. So they're written in the notebook, in my Dope Rhymes notebook. And then I have the notebook in front of me. Maybe one day I'll get to the point where I memorize it, but right now that's a hurdle that could keep me from moving forward in this new venture. So I have no problem reading it. I'm not a poet by career. I'm a financial advisor. So I have no problem reading. Read it in front of it, but then I also set up a secondary camera on one of my lights on the side, so it kind of catches me from the side. And that's the version that I will put on social media. So what I'm trying to do is put these poems out in different forms. So version 1 is you get the social media the day that I do it from the side angle, and I'll put it on Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter. And then I also, every Friday except for the last 2, because I've been on vacation, I have put the poem out on my podcast as a single. So I've made it try to look like these are singles being released. And I even created a playlist on Spotify that is the 6 poems in order. So it's kind of like an album. And I was inspired by, there's a hip hop artist named Russ. He's an independent artist. I'm a huge fan of his. And when he first got started, he's doing it all on his own, beats, the music, everything. He dropped a new single every week for like 57 weeks. And that's how he built his following, was every week there was a new single. And he still now just randomly drops singles in between projects. So I thought, all right, if that helped Russ build his audience, I'm going to do a track a summer, or a track every Friday throughout the summer. So then the poem shows up on Spotify as a single. Because I'm not sure people who follow me on Instagram also would follow the podcast. Maybe there's some overlap, but I'm hitting these audiences different. And then the final of it is the version where I'm looking at the camera. I have a couple of video editors that I work with. I'm having them take that version and then add like B-roll and other clips to it to make it so it's not just me staring at the camera. Like there'll be cutaways, but then they'll also have some video that's relative to the message. So it's a little bit more entertaining and not as weird to just look at me looking at a camera reciting some words. So just getting creative with how I put these out into the world and seeing what people think. But honestly, I'm doing it because I enjoy it. Like, Brian, you've known me long enough that I just follow my interests and I follow things I'm excited to do, and I do them regardless of what the outcome might be. And who knows, like maybe in 6 months, I have a new hobby that I could come talk about because I've moved on since spoken word poems. Or who knows, like maybe in 3 or 4 years, I win a Grammy for this new spoken word category that doesn't even exist yet because it takes off. Who knows?
So there's not really, there's more like kind of short-term goals to see where this goes, but no BHAG or anything about
No,
such as winning Grammys and
no.
or
I
whatnot.
mean, to me, the BHAG is to press a vinyl record.
Yeah.
I think that would be really, really cool. Even if
That would
it's,
be
I
cool.
have
So
all
cool.
15 of them at home in a box, like
Right.
to be able to put that, like little things get me excited. So I mentioned the podcast, it's on Spotify. Like when I go in my car and I pick Spotify and like there's Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole, and then there's Life Design Plus thumbnail up there. Like my picture is on Spotify next to 2 of my favorite artists. No one else is getting that, but I see that. So like to think about having in my other office, I have a record player and I have some of my favorite albums there. So to think that next to Tupac and Nipsey Hussle and Mac Miller, there's going to be my vinyl album. Like to me, that's the BHAG. Anything beyond that is like, cherry on top. But I think the reason that's so important to me is when I get back to my role as I consider myself a life planner now. I am a financial advisor for my existing clients, but to anybody new, I just want to do life planning. So as a life planner, I want to encourage people to do what it is that I'm doing, because I think that these interests, these hobbies that we have, not always, but sometimes can act as a great guide to pull us closer and closer to what it is that we're supposed to do. Am I supposed to be a rap artist? Probably not. But am I supposed to be somebody who can communicate and share a message in different ways and entertain people? Maybe, and that pulls back into the work that I want to do. So these spoken word poems may resonate with some people. It's interesting, maybe it's a little gimmicky, but it brings them in to find the message, and then they find the daily notes that I write, or they listen to the podcast, and then these things start to resonate with them, all because I did a spoken word poem that was interesting.
Did the life planning work that you're doing now, is that something that you intentionally moved into as natural outflow of the financial planning, or did you stumble into it by accident, that you just sort of discovered one day, oh my gosh, I'm a life planner and I need to find new ways to communicate with my people?
A little bit of both, and here's why I explain that. I no longer believe in coincidences or accidents. Like everything I was moving. So back when I started my firm, and even my whole career as a financial advisor, I've always been interested in the why. Like I've never been one to settle for the surface answer. If I want to retire at 55, like I need to know more. So I've always kind of had this inclination to dive deeper. And then, I found out about George Kinder. I learned about the evoke process. I read his book. I used the 3 questions. So I was doing a very lazy version of life planning, thinking I was doing a good job. And so I was always moving in that direction. And last fall, I finally just decided, all right, I am more interested in doing more of this. Let me do the evoke training through Kinder's program. My plan was do evoke and be done. I don't need the designation. I don't need to do the mentorship. I don't need 7 stages of money return. I just want to go through evoke. And day 2 of the training, I signed up for mentorship, and I knew that that's what I was supposed to be doing. So it was kind of an evolution. It was a little bit of who I was, but then the experience of the evoke training was life-changing for me, and said, okay, this is what I want to do going forward. Staying with kind of hip hop and music, I'm a big fan of Rick Rubin, who's a very famous music producer who's worked across genres, huge hits, but he's not he's a music producer that works the boards. He doesn't make the beats. He probably not technically a producer, but that's the term that's there. What he does is he helps the artist find the song within through his questions and the way they work. He's just very zen. And then he has the ability to make a few little suggestions to make the song better. So I always use this example of Jay-Z's 99 Problems. If you know that song, it's very famous intro that starts out as a cappella and then the beat drops. There's video of Jay-Z and Rick Rubin in the studio, And Rick Rubin just makes this suggestion of like, what if we do this a cappella? And Jay-Z thinks about it and he's like, oh, like this, and the beat drops, and he's like, yeah, like, and that's the beginning of the song. Rick just makes this minor suggestion. He didn't help Jay-Z write it. He provided the environment. He gave him the setting he needed to write this song, and makes a very, very stylistic comment that takes the song to a next level. And when I think about life planning, that's the opportunity I have as a life planner, is to help Brian figure out what is it that he really wants out of life by asking questions, providing the environment, giving him space, and letting him figure it out himself rather than me tell him. And then maybe there's an opportunity to kind of just throw an idea out there for him to consider that turns the light bulb off and sends him in this direction. So I've said this on other podcasts and in stuff I've talked about before, but in the second day of training, why it was so big for me, the trainer Louis said, in life planning, it's not the life planner's responsibility to provide any answers to the client. And that just was like mind blowing. And it sounded so amazing. And not that I don't want to provide answers. I enjoy running Monte Carlo and giving suggestions and coming up with strategy. But the thought of like, it's not my responsibility to give the answer. It's my responsibility to help them find it. I don't know why that hit me so hard, but I just was like, that's what I want to do going forward. And I want to do it for any of my clients today that we're not doing that deep of a relationship, but I don't want to force them on that because that's not what they came to me. But going forward, like that's the only type of work that I want to do. And then I just want to talk about the authentic life and all those things. Again, going back to the spoken poetry, it's another way for me to get people to think about, are they living the life that they really want to live? Do they know what that life even looks like? Because the talks are about that. The first one is based off of a talk that was called, Whose Life Are You Living? Like, are you living your life, or are you living the life that your parents told you you're supposed to live, or society sent you down? Like, whose life are you living? And then the second one was like defining your authentic life. Okay, so what is your authentic life? How do you get there? So all of those circle back to this idea of, are you living your authentic life? And if you're not, then I believe life planning can help you figure out what that looks like. And then how do you arrange everything to make that become your reality?
So I suppose there's a sense in which life planner as a title is a bit of a misnomer, because that's not your role. It's life
Right.
planning as a process. You're facilitating that process, but it's up to the person living the life to actually do the planning with
Exactly.
the assistance of the.
I don't know what the right
Planner.
title is. Like, I don't love the title life planner.
It's what we've got.
I don't like life coach either. I think that is kind of along where it is. Like, I've thought about like life architect. Well, I'm not really the architect. Like, I don't know what it
Spiritual
is.
guide.
Life
Yeah,
Sherpa.
kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I would welcome that, because I'm all about bringing woo to financial planning and life planning, because I think if you go deep into life planning, you have to get into the woo. You have to tap into who you are as a person, which brings in spirituality to whomever or whatever your creator is. And I think we have to get there. I had a podcast that was this week's episode with the other trainer in my life planning, and she talked about how, you have to get in and connect it with your heart to figure out who you really are and what you really want. And most financial advisors aren't talking about that. Like, that's areas we don't go to. And I want to bring the woo. I want to talk about the law of attraction and manifestation and all these things, because I think there's a lot of truth to that when you bring that to the financial plan, combine that with all of the tactical and strategic stuff we can do, I think that's a great recipe for helping people live a great life.
When I was career changing into the industry in 2022, trying to find, how am I going to find somebody to take a chance on me? That was one of the angles that I put on the resume. I said, hey, I've been involved in church leadership for 15, 20 years. I'm really accustomed to having deep, hard conversations with people at the hardest moment of your life. So I can already do that. Hire me. And I don't know whether that was one of I didn't get a whole lot of traction, and I only needed one person to hire me. And I don't think that necessarily was what Brian had in his mind when he found me.
But I mean, that
can help.
That is not I guess that's a skill that can be taught and can be learned. But to somebody coming into the profession, if I were hiring, I feel like that is the ability to do that and understand that and be good at it is way more important than the numbers. Because the numbers, I think, are easier to use. We have all these great tools. AI is going to help us out. Like, we can leverage technology to help that type of stuff. And then over time, you can quickly learn how to kind of bring the numbers to it. But to do what you're able to do through your past career, I think is super, super valuable, and is not something a lot of that comes easy to advisors.
So I guess last fall then when you were going through this and the second day of that training, that sounds like the same time when you decided, I'm just going to start doing this. I'm going to stop waiting around for people to come to me. I'm going to put this out there. Is that the same time frame? That was the
You know what?
germination?
I've never made that connection before, but the second talk of the Keep Pursuing series was the third day of Evoke. That was a hell of a day because I was in training from 9 to 6, and then I had my talk at 7 o'clock that night. So that was an exhausting. So yeah, it was the same time. I never made that connection before.
And are there people that you're working with that you're trying to communicate with them in a way that they're going to hear what you're saying, and that sometimes takes multiple experiments? There are people that I'm guessing would resonate more with the quasi-metrical version of the spoken word rather than the just straight prose delivery.
If I had to, I think that the spoken word approach to bringing people in is more for future opportunities. I think my existing clients have been amazing over the years. They've been supportive of all of my experimentation, and they actually they're happy to see me doing these things. Like
They knew what they were getting into with you.
yeah, they take interest in what it is I'm doing. And because I share all this stuff with them in my weekly email. So they get all my daily notes, they get all these poems and things that I do. And they click on it, they watch it. And when they come in, they comment on it. So I don't necessarily know if it's helping them figure out who they are. Maybe it does and drips on them, but they, for whatever reason, and I think it's just the relationship we have as advisors with our clients, they enjoy seeing me be authentic and be who I am. And they've seen me grow. And it's good messaging too. Like if I was doing gangster rap, maybe the reception would be different. But this is talking about living your authentic life, figuring out who you are, controlling your mind. These are all positive things that I'm talking about. I think that when I think about the life planning business that I want to grow and the work that I want to do, I think that the type of people that I would be best to serve and to help, the poetry will speak to them. The creativity will speak to them. And so I think it will help me attract the people that I want to work with going forward because of the format and the messaging.
Is your practice nationwide digital based, or are you Northeast Indianapolis, or a good blend of both?
It's a mixture of both. I've got clients across the country. The bulk of them are in the north side of Indianapolis, because of previous stops before, working with teachers around the area, and them following me around. So most of the bulk of the clients are around town, but I've got clients across the country.
I guess you've not even been doing this a year yet. We ask if people have any special or significant memories of what they've done as a hobby.
I do.
And
I do. So
go for it.
This is so cool. Because you never know, as a creative, putting content out there, you don't know if people like it, if they're listening, because no one really gives you a lot of feedback other than
They have to go out of their way, and usually it's negative. Yeah.
Negative, right?
Your family lets you know. So, I won't use her name. I don't think she would mind, but I have a friend, and she had a pretty significant life change in the last year, tough thing to overcome. And she sent me a text one day that a friend of hers, who I do not know, sent her one of my videos of my spoken word poem. And he sent it to her kind of as motivational because she was getting ready to give a big speech overseas and just to kind of motivate her. But she sent it to me and was like, how cool is this? Our friend sent me this poem, and he shared it with his family as well. So it was really cool. And that was I think maybe that may have been my first video I did as well. It was the first one I did. And so one, to know that somebody sent it to somebody else was really cool. But to know that he sent it to her, not knowing that it wasn't like he's like, oh, look what your friend did. He's like, here's this thing, check it out. It'll pump you up, make you feel good. And then I got to see that was probably one of the coolest things on the spoken word so far.
Good. Yeah, that would be really heartwarming and affirming that you're doing something that's worth doing, and you have this feedback that people are being helped by what you've done. That's because I don't know if that always happens in financial planning, because we work over decades rather than moments.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and that's why this podcast is called Unexpected Hobbies, because this is called Different Hobbies. This is really about the unexpected nature of all these different things we're talking about. So I have to wonder here, how much of this, I don't know how much for lack of better words, competition there is in the spoken word poetry digital space of content. But like, how much I wonder is the fact that you're a financial advisor and you're doing this, and what's the unexpected part of that that's fueling, if any? Maybe not. Maybe it's just you touch on the hearts of
Hmm.
the people that are listening, and that's good enough.
I think the unexpected part of it is that it just like I randomly got this idea. The other unexpected part of it is I don't ever sit down and say it's time to write a poem. Like it hits me. And the cool thing is when I do my best writing, the best poems I've written, it's always when I'm in a plane. So I wrote one last night on the way home from New York City. But so I've done the 6 for the talks. So 5 talks, but one of them was really long. I broke up into 2. So 6 talks. I think I've written 4 or 5 other poems as well. And of the, let's say I've written 12, I would say half of them have been written on a plane. So I don't know what it is about being up in the sky and the clouds closer to the heavens that like makes it, but it's very easy for me to sit down on a plane and write a poem. So I think the unexpectedness of it is it came out of a random idea. I don't have any history of doing it. Again, I don't even know if these are technically poems. The spoken poem community might be pissed at me for calling it that. Like that's not what that is. Don't water down what it is that we do. And I don't mean it to be offensive. And also like that's not something that most financial advisors are known for,
Yeah.
or doing. Now, I'm not doing it necessarily for business development. I think that if it were to generate any type of business development, that's awesome. I'm doing it genuinely because like I have become a very creative person and I have to do these creative outlets. I have thought about though, if I'm being honest, I have thought about making it a part of the public speaking that I do going forward. And to differentiate myself because my thought is, most people when they give a talk, they'll do a brief like outline. Here's what we're going to talk about today. Well, what if I do a 15 to 20 line spoken word poem that is the outline for the talk? So I'm not going to give you the full talk. You're going to get an idea of where we're going and what we're going to talk about through the spoken word poem, which is unique and different. And then I go into the full talk and branch it out. So I have thought about doing that to kind of help because I do want to do more speaking. I love being on stage. Will my only on stage speaking only be spoken word poetry? Maybe that is what it is. Maybe I do go to more of the open mic nights around town and just do it. That from a confidence standpoint, I don't usually lack confidence. I got a ways to go before I would be comfortable getting on stage and doing that. More so because not what the people in the crowd think. I think it's what I would be more concerned about what the other performers think. And
Hmm.
and not that like, going back to my comment about like offending that community, I don't want them to think that I'm doing a disrespect to that craft because I don't know what I don't know. So that's where the fear. If I knew that what I was doing really was considered spoken word poetry, then I think I'd have a little more confidence to kind of go up there. And I know that once I got on stage and started going, I would enjoy it. But anyway, so when you ask about the unexpected, I think that's the unexpected part of it.
Andy Panko has talked on his podcast about how years ago he was involved with it was like Toastmasters, but it
Mhm.
was centered around stand-up comedy. And so they did the workshops together, they practiced together, and then at the end of this course, they did stand-up together.
Mhm.
And because they were doing it, we're going to learn this, and we're going to do it together. The whole point of it was to gain confidence, and because
Mhm.
they were each coming at it from their same point with the same purpose, and it was just family and friends in the audience they were able to overcome the fear of giving offense to the stand-up community or whatever, because that was literally what they were trying to do in the first place. So
Mhm.
maybe you just need to find a half dozen others in the same position and do it together.
I think another area I would like to improve on is the delivery. I mean, I do think the benefit of having these memorized is you can do more with the delivery of it. When I listen, I don't love listening to myself back as much as I record. I don't really listen to things back. But when I watch and I look at it, it's not bad, but I would like it to be more performative to where that would pull people in as well. And when I do it, like you can go find the videos. I'm not sitting there reading. There's inflections and I'm changing and I move with it. But I would love to be able like the videos I've watched of the really good performers. Like I would love to get to that level of confidence and just reps in to where I can be where I can perform like that.
Is there like a mentor opportunity? You reach out to some of these people that you look up to and say, "Hey, I'm digging what you're doing, and I'm trying to follow, and you inspire me." I mean, has there been any of those sort of conversations?
Not yet. And I haven't been following long enough to identify who that might be. Like I could reach
Mhm.
out to Kenny Beats and like rap artists. That would be
There you
easy
go.
because I know who those
Rick
folks are.
Rubin. Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, like there's no reason I can't have a conversation with those people, and one day it will happen. Like I will send an email to Kenny Beats one day and tell him how that interview with Rick Rubin inspired me and how the album Louie is exactly what I have in mind, except my own version. And like the naive mind that I have thinks that he's going to get that email and we'll have a conversation because it's like, oh, this is cool. Like, I don't think we're going to collab on an album, and I sure as heck can't afford to pay him. But I think that if I share that story with him, there'll be an opportunity to talk to him because it's different and it's unique. Like, not he probably gets hit up by a bunch of aspiring rap artists. To get hit up by a aspiring spoken word poem financial advisor, like that stands out. That's different. Like, let me talk to this dude because that's not normal. That's unexpected.
That's unexpected, right? Everybody's different. Be unexpected. That's
Yes,
my
exactly.
mantra.
Oh, that's a good tagline. Everybody's
Yeah.
different. Be unexpected. If you haven't, trademark that for the show.
Advisors are fighting to be different. Don't be different. Everybody's different. Be
Mhm.
unexpected. That's
And
what's memorable.
so allow me to build upon that, just who I am. And in your unexpectedness, be authentic with it. Like, I
100%.
don't think you should go try to, like, what can I do to be unexpected to stand out? Like, that's never going to work.
Streaking.
Yes.
Contrived unexpectedness. Yeah.
Allow your unexpectedness to be authentic to who you are. And I think that's what's going to make it like the most unexpected and the most lasting, is because it's just natural and authentic.
Yeah. You mentioned that you had become creative and you're
Mhm.
something of a content generation machine. Is that lifelong? Were you big into English comp as a freshman in high school, or is it something that you've grown into?
Definitely something I've grown into. And what I think happened is when I got into school, the creativity that I think we're all born as creative, and we all have creators inside of us. And my example to that is, think about what do we know how to do immediately as children, and nobody teaches us. Like once we are able to
Spreadsheets.
crawl, some of us maybe, not me, but let's go back even younger. Before we can type, babies get themselves balanced, they can sit down, and immediately they're building with blocks, they're drawing, they're like imagination. Like we have creativity naturally in us. And then some of us, and I say some of us because this is me, I lost that when I went into school. Basketball became my love, and I guess creativity may have shown itself on the court, but I wasn't thinking at it from that standpoint. But I liked art class. I did okay in it, but I didn't do it outside of art class. My life was basketball. And when the creator in me was awoken or awakened, whatever it would be, was when I launched my blog, when I launched my firm. So when I launched it was RL Wealth Management when it started, I was and am still a big fan of Josh Brown, and he had the Reformed Broker. And I knew that when I went out on my own, I wanted to write a blog like the Reformed Broker. So I launched All About Your Benjamins, and the beginning of writing and that enjoyment and figuring out what to write, how to write, like that is when the creativity began. And then I saw Patrick O'Shaughnessy and Invest Like the Best. I loved that podcast. I was like, man, I would like to have people talk to me. A podcast would give them a reason to come talk to me. So let me launch a podcast. And the podcast turned into videos, and that's where it all transpired from. So I look at it as I became, but also I woke the creator inside of me up. And then since then, it's just like I can't shut it off. If I had all the money in the world, I would retire as a financial advisor, keeping probably a handful of clients that are like family, and then make sure everybody else is at a great house. Like would not retire until I knew they were at the right place for them. And then my day would be creating all the time, writing, podcasting, video. There's so many things I like to do. I just don't have the time for. So I just woke that thing up, and it is just continuing to grow, and that I just love doing it. And I don't know if I'm any good at it. I just enjoy doing it. And I think that's what's fun with it, is that I'm hoping that this stuff leads somewhere that helps me live my authentic life and financially grow. But I'm doing it because I love it and I enjoy it. And I do a lot of it myself. Like a lot of the editing, I do myself, and I should outsource it, but I don't, because I enjoy it. Like that's part of my hobby, is editing my podcast. I like editing my podcast. I've had other people do it before, but they didn't do it the way that I liked it, because I like the ums. I like the pauses in a podcast because to me, that lets the listener know that the person is thinking and what they're about to say next has a lot of meaning. If you cut those pauses and those ums out, it just sounds like it flows. And I think it loses a little bit of the power and the impact. And I want my podcast to be like you're a fly on the wall with us. So you get all of those little subtle cues. So I just do it myself. And it doesn't take a lot of time. So that's what I do. Like instead of watching shows or whatever it might be, like in the evening, if I have a podcast due, I'm editing the podcast, which is fun for me.
Well, they say that great art is never finished; it's merely abandoned and then
Mm-hmm.
unleashed into the world.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the original sort of life planning begins at home, as you've got kids in the home. Have they, any of them, got the creative spark and the urge to do something that you've been able to nurture, or is it, hey kids, it's you live in Indianapolis, so you're going to play basketball like your old man?
So my oldest two, Roman and Leo. So Roman just turned 14. Leo is 11. No, 12. 11. He'll be 12. They were creative when they were younger. I have videos. We have artwork from them drawing, but they don't do it so much anymore. They kind of followed my path. Roman is big in basketball. Leo plays soccer and does basketball as well. They don't really go back into creative. Silas, our youngest, who is 6, has no interest in sports, and he is our creative. And it's kind of cool. And I look back and it's almost like I know we influence our kids, and I didn't intentionally influence them, but when Roman was born and was little, I was still playing basketball a lot. So his natural was drawn to basketball. And I was obviously happy he did that, but I didn't care what he did. But that was his first love, and I was doing that. Leo likes basketball because of Roman. He got into soccer. But I look back when Leo was younger, kind of Silas's age, I was really big into CrossFit. And I have videos of Leo doing CrossFit workouts, of wall balls against the wall, burpees. He'd run around the house and he would do workouts. And that was like in line with what I was doing. And then now I'm more creative now. I still work out and do those things, but creativity is what I love a lot. And that is what Silas is into. So Silas will go into the home office. He'll close the door. He'll turn the Amazon, I won't say the names so I don't turn anybody else's on, but the device on and have music blaring, and he'll just sit there and draw. Or we have tons of costumes. He'll mix and match costumes and come up, and he's just super, super creative. So I want to nurture that creativity. And if he got into sports, great, but I don't want him to lose that. And then hopefully over time, I can help Roman and Leo find their creativity. And now that I think out loud, Roman does show a little bit of creativity in the fact that he likes to make like highlight reels of basketball and different things. So he was doing them before of other stars, and now we have enough video where he can get it from the gyms he plays at. He'll make his own highlight reels. But when he does it, there is an artistic way to the way that he does it. He picks the songs for a specific reason. He lines the video up so like at a beat drop, a basket goes in, or he's really, really good at it. And the reason I know he's really, really good at it is he doesn't know how good he is. One of my local videographer, Morgan, took some video clips of him working out with a trainer. And she didn't have time to make a video for him, but she gave him all the raw files. And he put together this video. Like the song he picked was not be one you would expect for a basketball video. It was like slower R&B, but it was really, really good to the way he edited it. And the slow-mos he put in and the way he edited it. And she was like, that would have probably taken me 3 hours to do. And it took him 20 minutes. And she was like, I want him to help me edit. And he's like, why would you want me? That's not even that good. Like, I didn't do this, this, and this. I'm like, no, like, you're really, really good at it. And you're so good at it, you just don't know how good you are. So I'm hoping that keeps the creativity going in for him. And then I think Leo will find his own way. But it is really important for me to continue to show them my creativity because I don't want them to lose that, because I think creativity and following those interests, I do believe, help guide us on our path. I don't find myself where I am today if it wasn't for all the creative outlets and experimentation that I did. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, that definitely resonates in part of my story as well, from the, the creativity around the pinball like this is the next iteration of that creativity. Because I did the pinball machine, now I'm doing a podcast that's about talking to people about their unexpected hobbies, because I have one and I experienced growth and, personal growth and all these really cool things and perseverance and all that. And, but I understand, I have enough self-awareness at least to understand this is like, this will morph into something else. There'll be another creative outlet for me. And I already have, like, shared with Joshua this morning, kind of some other thing that I just started doing that wouldn't have probably wouldn't have wouldn't have happened had we not been doing kind of this creative podcast. So it is,
Mhm.
it's interesting that how it kind of, creativity kind of feeds on itself, and it's fun. It's fun to see where it's going and not
Mhm.
try to guide it. Just say, almost be along for the ride.
Mhm. Well, you brought up something that's really, I think, important. Creativity with pinball. I don't know if everybody would think of like what a creative person, pinball. That's probably not the first thought, but creativity manifests and shows itself in a variety of ways. Like you can be creative with the spreadsheets. Like you can be creative in the way that you solve financial problems. Like creativity is not just art. It's not just music and photography like that we automatically go to. And I think that maybe one reason that so many people don't think they're creative is because they're not the traditional creative forms that we think of. Creativity is everywhere. And I'm growing to believe that creativity, going back to everybody's trying to be different, be unexpected, creativity is really what separates us from everybody else. Like if you are able to express your creative self wherever you are, it's going to differentiate you and make you unexpected, which will make you stand out. And with the idea of this authentic life, I know it's not possible, but if we all lived our authentic lives, we would live in a perfect world because everybody is doing the thing that they were created to do with the gifts and talents that they have that no one else has, that no one else can do as well as them. And we're like all complimenting each other and everybody's happy. And we can't get there because of so many other things. But I think creativity is very similar to that. That if we tap into our creativity where we are or where we're supposed to be, that creativity allows us to either solve problems or do things in a way that nobody else can do that the world needs. And that's why I'm such a big believer in expressing ourselves creatively because it brings to the world something that only we can do. Only you can host this podcast the way that the two of you do. And only I can host my podcast the way that I do. Now, everybody might not want it, but no one else can do it the way that we can do it. And that's important. And I think the creativity, the creative outlet, the creative way of doing it, the creative way of seeing things is what differentiates us from everybody else.
Let me put you on the spot, and maybe this
Mhm.
will just be a reflection of my own fondness for inside the box thinking. When you say creativity, do you have a real good idea of what you mean, or is that one of those know it when you see it kind of things?
That's a good question. I'm going to
Or
go
maybe you need
more
to
in the
dwell on
camp.
that and make that the next spoken word poem.
It
What
that's good. That's a
creativity
good
is.
idea. That's a great idea, or at least a blog post. I'm going to lean right now in the moment in the camp of I'll know, like you know it when you see it, or you know it when you feel it, type of thing. It's kind of funny being a finance guy. You think I'd be like really deep into data and proof and studies. I'm the type of person that I don't need academic research or science to tell me what I feel and I know. Like I'm the type of person that like when I experience something, that's enough for me to know that it's real and I believe in it and I'm going to continue to follow it and I'm going to use life experience to be my confirmation versus having a study. The cool thing is I'm finding people around me that they like the studies. So they're doing all of the studies that back up my feelings. And now I have this data that I didn't have to go get to do it. So uh, to me, I think that I don't have a, I'm glad you asked me. This is something I should think about. I don't have a definition of what creativity really is. But I think it is something that I know when I see it, I know when I feel it. And I think that that's where I would go with today. So that's not the best answer, but
It's a starting point.
yeah.
I think creativity is easy to spot in the rearview mirror.
Mhm.
Like when I was in the middle of doing, like I'm a musician. I've played music since I was a kid, so I've always kind of identified or recognized that I had some creativity in me. But while I was building the pinball machine, it wasn't, oh look, isn't this fun? I'm being so creative. I was
Mhm.
like, no, I'm just solving a problem. It's like I
Mhm.
need like the code isn't working. I need to change how what scrolls across the screen when you hit a jackpot. Like I'm just solving a problem. But then when you look back is when you say, oh wow, that was really creative, and
Mhm.
you kind of recognize you have the luxury of kind of evaluating when it's over that yeah, there's quite a bit of creativity to do this. It was more than
Mhm.
just solving a big problem. But even in our own work as financial advisors, I think anytime you ask the question like how could this be better? Could we have a better outcome for clients? How's another way to do this? We all understand there's there's a million ways to skin a cat.
Mhm.
Skin a cat. I think just recognizing in the moment, like, hey, that's creativity. Every
Mhm.
time you've ever done that, that's using that right side of your brain. I always like to talk about right and left side. There's looking back at pinball, I've said this before, it's unexpected that I did this, but no, you kind of peel the onion back. It's actually makes perfect sense because financial planning is a lot of right brain and kind of an equal balance of right brain and left brain.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what this pinball project was, a great balance of right brain and left brain. It makes total sense that I was attracted to that as a hobby.
Hmm. And the key is the reflection. So now that you're aware of the creativity that lies within building a pinball machine, you will be more aware of it when you're in that creative state day to day, whether it be working with clients. And there's tons of creativity in financial planning. And truthfully, I think the best planning ends up being more right brain than left brain because that's what helps you build a plan for someone's life. Like people don't live a life according to a textbook, according to the CFP curriculum. So if that's all you're going off of, like that's going to be a boring life. And it's a plan no one's going to follow because it's not really a life they want to live. It's the creativity, and also the courage as a financial advisor to think outside the box. Sorry, Joshua, to think outside the box and make the recommendation that's not on board. Like to make the recommendation to tell a client to borrow against their 401k to, for a down payment on their house kind of as a short-term bridge. I think more advisors today are getting comfortable with that, knowing it's the best option for the client to achieve this goal. And we've talked about the risks, and the risks aren't that great. But CFP curriculum is going to tell you, no, that's the last thing you do. Never borrow against your 401k. I always talk about when I started my firm, I took a $10,000 distribution from my Roth IRA to get this firm going. Like, yes, we can take principal out. There's no taxes. So it's not quite as frowned upon, but most financial advisors are not going to tell their client, take $10,000 out of your Roth IRA to go start a business. Because most businesses fail and yada, yada, yada. No, but it's the greatest thing I could have done financially, but also from a quality of life. Again, if I don't start my business, I don't think I become this creative person that I am today. And if I'm not this creative person I am today, I don't think I'm living my authentic life, and I don't think I'm as happy as I am. All because I thought outside the box. So back to it. If you're an advisor listening and you're not looking for the creativity in your work, start identifying it so you get more comfortable, because creativity is going to be a very important part, I think, going forward, because technology is going to take away technology is going to assist or take away the technical stuff. If you can be an advisor that is able to bring creativity to the table for your clients to help them either figure out what they want or tweak the plan to make it work, that creativity is going to differentiate you from the majority of the advisors that are still following textbooks' way of planning.
I was thinking about that yesterday. We had a prospect meeting with a couple that was, about to turn 50. And then, we want to get ready to retire in 12 or 13 years because that's what we're supposed to do, right? And it was just a prospect meeting, so I didn't want to push on that right away. But I don't know, sir. If you love your job, then you don't have to quit just because you can do that or you cannot do that. That's your life to live. We got to get them on board so we can tell them.
Because that's what we're
tell them what
supposed
to do with their life.
That's the worst. Because that's what we're supposed to do is the worst. And I don't say that to be like negative towards people, because that's what we're told and that's what we're supposed to do. But like, no, do what you want, or at least explore what you want.
Think carefully about what you're defaulting into.
Yeah. And if at the end of the day, you do your reflection and your internal looking, and you know what, like what you've always been told you want to do is what you really want, then more power. Like I have no problem with somebody living the prescribed life if they're aware that they're living the prescribed life and that's what they want. No problems. I want people to be able to look at their life and know why they're doing the things they're doing and be at peace with it or be happy with it, and just know they have more agency in that than what they might realize.
You've been full of words of wisdom for people on the creative path and clients and living their authentic life. What words of caution or warning would you give to somebody that was thinking about starting out on a public-facing journey of creativity?
The biggest warning is don't do it for the vanity metrics. Like if you're going to put yourself out there creatively, publicly, like don't pay attention to the views, the downloads. Like you should be doing this because you want to. And if you keep on getting zeros across the board, it doesn't matter, because you're doing something that you enjoy. Now the advice might be a little bit different if the reason you're doing the content is to try to grow your business. Then okay, you have to pay a little bit more attention to the metrics. But I mean, Rick Rubin says it. I said it before I heard him say it, so it makes me feel good about myself. But like, I want to credit him, is that the artist creates because the artist has to create. The artist doesn't create for the audience. He creates for himself or herself. And he lets the audience interpret it the way that they want to. So from a creative standpoint, if you're going to embark on any creative journey, whatever it might be, do it for yourself, do it because you want to. And if somebody likes it, awesome. But if not, that's perfectly fine because you got to do something that you enjoy. Now, with that being said, I genuinely believe if you're doing something for yourself that you enjoy, eventually there's going to be people who find it that like it. But it's going to be the overnight success that took 10 years to build.
Yeah.
And there's things you can do, SEO and, ways to maybe grow your audience. But I really like just organically growing and letting it grow slow with the people who really like it. And, if it's only 100 downloads an episode, then so be it. That's 100 people tuning in every week because they like what I have to do, what I like to say, like what I do. I'll take it. And if I keep on doing it, that number will slowly grow. And I never set out to be the next Joe Rogan. I never set out to be the next Russ or Kendrick Lamar or J. Cole. So if it never goes anywhere, that's perfectly fine. There's probably
And hopefully
tons of other
nobody ever
advice.
wants to be the next Justin Castelli, but if they're inspired by you to be the one and only version of them, then that would be
Yes.
victory. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of places where people can find you and your creative work. What would be, if somebody wanted to find this series that you've been putting out, where would they go to find that?
The best place would be to go to justincastelli.io. So that's like my website. That's the hub. So that has all the podcasts are there. So the singles show up there. The daily notes show up there. It links out to everything. So that's the best thing.
Okay. And if they wanted to find you professionally, because they were interested in having you as a financial planner, life planner, same place or someplace else that's more specific?
That one I would go to rlswealth.com. So that's the firm website. Hard to say though.
All right. Well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been really, really interesting. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm kind of speechless, which takes a lot. This is a lot. I need like some time when we sign off here to just kind of go meditate and like think about, like let some of this sink in.
I'll quietly let myself out of your house so that you can
see
have a
yourself
moment.
out. I'll be deep in thought with a notepad. So no, this is really great.
Dope rhymes.
Yeah,
Yes.
with some dope rhymes. That's right.
I appreciate the opportunity. I'm glad you guys let me go over and ramble because I like I told you before, I get excited to get going and it's hard to get me stopped. So this was awesome. And you gave me some things to think about. So Josh, thanks for the question on what creativity is. That gives me something new to ponder on. So I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been good to have you. Thanks so much. Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors is brought to you by Fiduciary CFO, forward-thinking tax and planning solutions for business owners, like RIA firms and their business owner clientele. The opinions of Brian, Joshua, and their guests are for entertainment purposes and should not be construed as legal, tax, financial, or investment advice. You should know better than to take any of this content seriously. Thanks for being a fan of the show. If you were listening and thought to yourself, hey, I know somebody they need to have on the show, you can do something about that. Go to unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate and tell us who they are and what they do that's so interesting and unexpected. If we agree, we'll send them an invitation and we'll hope they say yes. Now it's unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate.